Well, I've had quite a surprising number of people asking about this car. What's happening with it, when's it going on the road, both on YouTube and in my personal life. Well, the short answer is soon. What's happened to this car recently is the front windscreen was cut out because the dickhead that installed it, you know, there was gaps in the sealant, see previous video. The windscreen's been removed. The sealant bed has been cut down a lot because this windscreen is sitting up, you know, 5mm higher than the edge of this. You can just see that it's actually slightly lower than this edge, but it was sitting 5mm up. It's nice and solid, and no, it doesn't leak. I've washed it. In fact, it's the first proper wash it's had, apart from the very first one that Holly did. The back window came out of this smashed car, and this has been installed. Now note, there's no trim rubber, it's just been painted black on the inside. This bit's been painted black too because, yeah, I did scratch up the metal a bit when I was sanding it, but that's okay. I was getting rid of silicon and all that crap. There's also, actually most of what that is just sealant from the windscreen. The windscreen guy did a really nice job. If you're anywhere near the Goulburn Valley and you want a panel beater that is fantastic, Chris Lowen's Smash Repairs. I think it's just under Lowen Smash Repairs. The price was very good. The quality of the work was excellent. I actually saw this before the window got put in. Now, some of you might remember the speaker brackets that were cut, and I've actually removed them out of this car. This is what it looks like without speaker brackets. There's where they go. And if I open this up, probably not going to see crap because of the sunlight. This is the speaker brackets. They've been welded in. Very neat job. Very happy with it. Same with the other one. You can see that it's still got green paint from the other car. One of the things they also did, which I hadn't mentioned on... Oh yes, I did mention it. Was right here the sheet metal was cracked. Because eBay boot struts where you pull the lever and the boot flies up, which is not supposed to happen. They were far too strong. So you can't see anything because it's dark, but yeah, they've been welded in. So they're actually from this car also. I borrowed them. Now where they spot welded in, that's here. I got big drill bits and drilled the top sheet metal layer away. So that's what, you know, that's what it looks like when you drill out the top sheet metal for those boot strut brackets. So they've been installed. They did a very nice job of that. Maybe I could actually sort of go through this window, but yeah, you can see that it just looks stock. They used weld through primer on everything. They didn't just weld it straight bare metal to bare metal, so it shouldn't rust out. Same with this one, it's all got weld through primer on it, and then afterwards they gave it a coat with this paint. So it's all been done properly. Same with this, you know. This side was quite cracked up, fairly severe too. Like, you know, it was cracked all over the joint. Because these boot struts were just so strong, you'd nearly hold a bonnet up with it. You'd pull the boot release lever and the boot lid would fly up. Like, that's how strong they are. All they're meant to do is hold the boot lid up. Now the terminals on this heated rear window, this one's hanging off by a thread because the bloody soldering's come adrift. This one you probably can't see it, but it's sort of, it's not really happy. This wants to focus. Focus. Anyway, you're gonna have to take my word for it. That's why a camera with manual focus would be fantastic. This one's been removed completely, and you can see a bit of a gap there in the copper coating, so I should still be able to solder it there because that whole pad's copper. I'm a little bit iffy about getting that window hot because I don't want the damn thing to shatter. So I'll go and do some research. There's about 5,000 YouTube videos on the subject. No, I am not doing one for that very reason. Also, when the audio guy chopped up the speaker brackets with an angle grinder, it sent swarf in every single direction. So that, coupled with a leaky rear window, from the audio guy that used black Celastic to try and stick it in. The swarf ended up here, and you can see the rust there. It's actually not in the sheet metal of the car. It's more of a rust stain than anything. That's where the swarf was just sitting. And I'm going to actually put some paint on that. I don't really need to, but I'm going to. It's pretty clean anyway, like the top bit there is not too bad. But yeah, it's just on the surface basically, so I do realise it's not necessary, but I'm going to get phosphoric acid, and I'm going to phosphoric acid all along here on both sides, and I'm just going to brush paint it, because I don't want to start spray painting because it'll go everywhere, and I don't want that to happen. This inertia reel seatbelt cotton reel is buggered because there's a side here on it. This one's obviously gone. If I unreel it further, you might see it. You can see the cotton reel on this side, but on this side it's smashed. There are bits of it all over the floor. For a reference, probably can't see crap, this is what it's supposed to look like. You can see, probably not because of the light, the cotton reel on that side, and you probably can't see it on this side because it's dark, but there is one there. I've stuck the wadding here, which I removed because I knew it was going to have hot work done on it, and you know, welding these brackets, this is a bit close. I stuck it on with just contact adhesive, which is pretty much what they do use in the first place, just some quick grip. It's nothing fancy, nothing really special. Here's part of the original speaker bracket that was cut up like fair dinkum. I mean, yeah, so there's bits of them in here. I'm not going to pull them out because they're sharp and I don't want to cut myself, but this is what not to do with cars. You can see that this is actually, it's been that part there. So that's what it had. It had this, just these bits of brackets to fit 6x9 inch speakers in. And look at how crap the cut is with the grinder. Like, I mean, it's not going to focus on this because of the way camera. There we go. Look at how crappy the cuts are in the first place. I mean, he must have used the crappiest cutting disc in the world. If you're going to cut things up on cars, go get the ultra thin cutting discs, because they make such a much neater cut. The thick dog rocket cutting discs just make a big mess. Bit of a problem with the trim, the plastic trim that goes, and it's obviously dirty and needs a clean, but it goes up, you know, here to cover the, hold this up and cover that. The clips are broken off, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with that. I could use Sikaflex to hold it up. I could just put some, you know, give everything a good clean so it's not dirty. Put some big blobs of it here. I'll have to be very careful because I don't want to get it all over this. That would actually hold it up nicely. I'd probably only need 2 blobs because there are, you know, tabs on most of it. It's just the middle hasn't really got tabs. So it's a bit of a problem because, you know, these cars are getting old and the plastic, yeah, maybe I should have sprayed it with some inox or something beforehand, before pulling it off. But I tried that on this thing and all of it broke. Usually it's worth pulling these windows out, these quarter windows, because they do leak. And here's one that's never been sealed, and yes, it did used to leak. It's got no rust anywhere else except, like, here's not rusty, it's just here is. But that other car, that hasn't got any rust at all. It's a really good body shell. The boot's clean, no rust. The boot's actually, yeah, probably still got remnants of coolant in it. Someone spilled a whole bottle of coolant in it, which is not very useful. The back shockers on this are buggered, so they need replacing. The stuff off the back of this, which is 12 months old, won't fit because this is live rear axle, being only an executive. And this came standard with an IRS, being an Acclaim. Yes, it is genuinely an Acclaim. Someone suggested it wasn't, but no, Acclaims did not automatically come out with electric windows. This was a series, it's a Series 2 VS, but it's a 96 Series 2. I don't know if they ever changed the spec level or anything like that as they went on, but no, you had to, there was an option for electric windows. This has just manual wind-up windows, thank God, because they are much less troublesome than electric windows are. Yes, electric windows are just another thing to go wrong. This is an executive tail light, and it's not even a very good one because the reflector's not red anymore, it's gone white, and the brake light's faded too and it looks shit. Then you go to this light, which is broken. You know, it's all sun damaged. You can't, oh yeah, you can just sort of make that out in the camera. That's what the sun damage looked. That's mechanical damage there. This is sun damage here. But it's fucked. Look, it's broken. You can see what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have that plastic there, and it doesn't. It's all broken. So I'm going to go get 2 new tail lights. You can get them for 80 bucks a pair from eBay. No, nothing's ever as good as the genuine, original Holden tail lights, but you know, it's 2017. This car is 19 years old, so Holden never envisaged this thing would still be driving around in 2017. They assumed that every single VS would be crushed by now because it was a long time ago. But they did build one pretty good car. But as you can see, you know, apart from being dusty, because I mowed the lawn next door and yeah, there was dust going everywhere, so but it actually cleans up quite nicely. You can sort of vaguely see, you know, how dusty it really is. But I'm very happy with it so far. It drives nicely. I am eventually going to put all of the lowered suspension off the other car onto it. It's only 30mm lower than standard, but trust me, you don't want to lower a car to, you know, the legal limit, because good luck getting up driveways. And this driveway here is a challenge to get in without scraping in a standard car. So yeah, think about being practical before the aesthetics. And if you're lowering a car because it looks good, you sorely missed the point of car lowering in the first place. Because seriously, if you modify suspension properly and conservatively, although using Nolithane bushes on everything isn't necessarily conservative, but it's very, very good and they handle very, very well, it can be a hell of a lot of fun to drive. But just dumping some lowered springs in it and using the original shockers is just a waste of time. If anything, you'll create a car that handles like shit and is dangerous to drive. So if you are going to modify the suspension, you really need to put $1,000 aside, and probably even more. But $1,000 should cover a Nolithane bush package, and although that's personal preference, no, you don't have to use polyurethane strut hats. And the strut hats are usually, they're basically the strut mounting bush. They usually sit up in here. It will make it quite harsh to drive. Even on these standard size tyres, it was definitely harsh. You felt every single bump. But the way they make it handle is phenomenal because it keeps the geometry of the suspension. Nolithane's polyurethane suspension bushes are a hell of a lot firmer than the rubber. The rubber's nice and soft and pliable and makes it all nice and quiet for you know, mummy and daddy to drive children to school and things. But if you enjoy driving, and you know, I'm not talking about being a dickhead hoon driver, but if you enjoy bendy roads in the country kind of thing, you will value the harder bushes, because yeah, it definitely makes it handle better. I mean, this thing was phenomenal to drive even though it looked pretty bad. These sway bar link pins are kind of ridiculous. They're really big and heavy, but I'm still going to use them because they're stainless steel, which is fantastic. The bushes on them are about a 3 out of 10. You can see this one's fractured. But this thing already has Nolithane strut link, sway bar linkages anyway. My brain wants to work properly. The other thing I've done is, because the airbag cover was busted, it had a big hole in it sort of here-ish, I've actually fitted a VT airbag. And if you're wondering, they're not a straight direct fit. The difference is the connector plug for the horn stuff is different, but the actual pins in the wiring are the same. So if you get like not a paper clip, but I use pop rivets and then grind them down to a sharp point, or even a sewing needle, like a thick one, you can actually, you know, you can actually unhook the barbs on the connector and the terminals just pop straight out, and then you just use the original VS Commodore horn connector. Basically the airbag one is identical, but it's a worthwhile modification because, you know, the horn in the centre is better, and if the cover has a hole in it, then it's not roadworthy. The other thing that's not roadworthy is the fact that this twists. There's not a lot you can do about that. You can drill a hole and inject some Sikaflex or something, and that's pretty obviously what I'm going to have to do if it fails. I've got another steering wheel over here. Why don't I put that one in the car? Well, the simple fact is this one's just as bad, except it's more worn. You can see it's all shiny. They're all going to be the same. The other thing you could do, if you could find a good VT Commodore steering wheel, it's probably almost the same and probably going to be a fit. Now I don't know because I haven't done it. You want one out of an executive VT with no buttons on it, because you know you can't use the buttons on this because it's different. Now I mean, I haven't done it so I don't know, but just Commodore's forum is really quite a good resource of information because they have all this stuff on there. Say if you want to put a Bellina Calais Statesman instrument cluster in one of these cars, it has the wiring stuff on there that members have actually drawn up, and yeah, you can do it. Yeah, I've done it. This one I've got all the stuff in there. This is just the standard cluster because that's what I sat in there the other day. But that's the fourth plug for the instrument cluster, and I am going to keep all of that wiring because yeah, the Calais instrument cluster is quite a nice looking cluster. It's well worthwhile modifying them. The only catch is you do have to run a lead over to the ECU for the data for real-time fuel consumption. If you're not confident that you're connecting it to definitely the right ECU pin, it's a bad idea to do anything because you might damage the ECU and you won't be able to drive the car, or something won't work properly. So be aware when you're playing with wiring that even though these are 20 years old, the wiring's, you know, pretty complicated and pretty well engineered, pretty highly engineered, and it's also, you know, quite electronic. So yeah, don't go playing with it if you're not comfortable doing it. You're better off to pay an auto electrician if you don't know what you're doing, but it's expensive. But you know, if you don't want to do either of those things and buy a Calais that has the cluster in it already, the main thing I like about it's the layout. I don't really care about the trip computer, although that is handy to have. So, I mean, the rest of it comes down to money, really. You know, I've got to save up. I've got to take it for a roadworthy, and that's not free anymore. Like, it used to be $50, and now it's, you know, it's getting on to $300 at some places. But it's got the cooling system from the other car, which includes the double row copper core radiator, you know, the cooling fan because I was too lazy to unbolt it. I've got a whole front end worth of suspension parts that are new, including all the bushes, although this one's pretty good anyway. It looks like my indicator lens on this side's a bit buggered because it looks like it's full of water to me. That's definitely not going to pass like that, so I will probably change that or take it out and seal it up with something and put it back in. Yeah, if you wash your car and the indicator looks like that afterwards, it's bad, it won't pass.